All right. Well, here today we're going to take a few moments to go over operating the Studer consoles in the X-Ray Studios. These are the broadcast consoles, or commonly referred to as the board. We have Studer On-Air 2000s. These are made late 90s, early 2000s, and they're a mixture of digital and analog components, but we're going to go over the basics of operating this thing. You'll see it here in Studio A. On either side of the screen in the middle, you have some other touch screens here. These are readouts / touch screens that tell you what inputs we have on the board and how to select them. So you can see here at the bottom, they're labeled 1 through 6. And these are dual selectables. So there's actually 12 inputs here. You can select them by choosing a different button here on each one of these screens. So right now we've got AMic 1, AMic 2, AMic 4, TT1, which stands for Turntable 1, TT2 for Turntable 2, and the phone channel are what are selected here. And you can see they're selectable by pushing these buttons here. And you can see at the bottom, it'll tell you which input is actually selected when you've got 2. So now it says BMic 1, Turntable 1 is now selected. You can only change these inputs when the channels are off, so when you see nothing lit up over here. The channel is on and armed when the light is on, and you can push off to turn it off. On turns it on. And each channel strictly just corresponds with the fader underneath. So if you wanted to turn on mic 1 in Studio A, you go to input 1 here for mic 1, find the fader. You want to set your fader volume and then turn it on. This makes mic 1 active now. And it would go out to air. You could turn it off simply there. When the faders are down, there's no volume coming through. So all the way down, it's labeled here as negative infinity. And that just means the track is silent. So you could turn it on, but if the fader's down, nothing will go to air. When engineering audio in these studios, or really any console, there are 2 factors to consider. One is the fader position and the other is gain. And our gain is set permanently on these boards. So really, for this situation, you only have to worry about the fader position. It's best to always put your fader up to 0. You'll kind of see the 0 mark here. And you can see it's plus 10 above it and negative 10 above it. That's in reference to dB. So put it up to 0 and try out your audio best there. And you can use this to make small adjustments to audio volume or loudness for each input as you're going. So just start at 0, and if you need to make a big adjustment, you can pull it all the way down here, or if you need to make a big adjustment, you can boost it all the way up. This just allows you to kind of ride the fader and adjust your volume as needed for each input. And you'll find that every input has a slightly different level it needs to be at. So just start at 0 and work your way around there. And you can mix these. So if you were doing a DJ program with your turntables here, you would do something like turn turntable 1 up and mic 1 up, and then you could turn these both on. And if you're doing you'd leave it off while you're DJing your program, but let's say you wanted to do a mic break, you could turn this volume down for bed music, turn your mic on, you could go ahead and chat, turn it off, pull this back up. It's a really basic way of engineering a program. So it's the basics of input selection and using the faders. Make sure you reset everything when you're not using it. You'll see there's another side of the board here. These are inputs 7 through 12. They're also selectable. So we've got CD1 and CD3. CD3 is used for recording. CD2, Studio B program, which is actually the audio from the other studio. So if you need to pull up audio from across studios, you can simply pull it up to 0 and turn it on.
Swipe left,
Now we can hear the audio from the other studio. It's useful when engineering across the studios, and you'll go over that more in depth later. Channel 9 is automation. Channel 9 is very important. That's anything that plays through the automation computer. So all of our pre-recorded content, your carts, and any incoming streams will come through there. Production Studio and CPU2. Production Studio is the studio down the hall. USB is in case you wanted to plug the USB cable in and play anything from the computer. CPU2 is anything from your secondary screen here. And then we've got externals 1 and 2 and cassette, and that's for plugging something else in, such as your own computer, through these externals that you find floating around the studio here. And that's just the same. You plug it into your computer, pull it up, turn it on, turn it off when you're ready to stop. So that's the basics of input selection and figuring out how to choose your volume on here. The next thing we're really going to go over is monitoring. It's important to kind of know how loud you're playing to the radio audience, how to tell if you're playing loud to just this room or to the radio audience as well, and how to set those levels, and then also how to change the monitoring system that we have in here so you can use it to your best advantage. So for this purpose, we're going to turn on Studio B's program. We're in Studio A, so we're going to turn on the audio from the other studio and turn it up to 0 there. And you'll see over here we've got a leveler. This is our meter. So if you're talking to somebody in engineering or ops or one of your other board operators about and you're getting some help, some support, and somebody refers to the leveler, this is what they're referring to. And this is just a meter that shows you essentially how loud the audio is that you're putting out. So you can see that we're pushing audio through. And this leveler is interesting, it jumps around. But essentially you'll see right around here, it's also labeled away from 0. 0 means that you're peaking or you're being distorted. Anything away from that is good. We have a compressor in our signal chain that actually boosts this level up after it's coming through the board here. So this is actually louder and closer to 0 after this board than here. So we don't want to engineer things to 0 in this room or near it. What we want to do is engineer to this little mark that says about -15. And you can see once it turns from red initially to green, or to red to yellow here, around -18, that's when you're starting to hit the sweet spot. And the two sets that bounce on top are an average. So you want those to actually kind of be bouncing around 15. So right there is pretty perfect in terms of engineering your audio levels. And you can see I just made a small adjustment. I pulled this fader just below 0. The hash mark in between 0 and 10 is -5 dB, so I pulled it down about -1.5 or -2 dB, and that brought me to about -15 where I want it. So if you're ever unsure, just keep watching this leveler as you're programming your show or as you're operating your show, and you'll be able to keep yourself in check. If you see it do something like that, where it's just bouncing all the way up, you're kicking in the compressor in our audio chain, and it sounds pretty bad on air that way, and you're probably distorting something as well. So just stay away from really running this too hot. You want to keep it right around there. But like I said, just engineer everything to 0 and make small adjustments from there. So that's your visual monitor. That's how you can tell how loud you are going out to air. But there's also some aspects of engineering where you might want to change the audio to just this room. Maybe you want to turn the speakers up in this room, or maybe you want to turn up the volume to your headphones, or maybe you even want the speakers in this room to play something different than what's going out to air. So we have a set of studio monitors, audio monitors right here, these speakers, and we refer to these as our mains, just our main outputs for monitoring. That's where all the audio is going to come out of in this room. One of 3 places really. And you control all of this by changing the monitor section here. This part of the board to the right of the leveler is the monitoring section. So there are 3 ways to monitor in here. One is through the mains. One is through these onboard speakers here. And then the third is from the headphone amplifier. So I'll show you how to manipulate all of these. Let's go back to the monitoring section. The first section here, and this is really important, this is helpful in just learning how to read an audio console. You'll see this knob here, and then there's like a line that kind of sections off this second knob, and then there's a line and a box that sections off this third knob. That means these buttons are the only thing that have anything to do with this knob, and these buttons are the only thing that has to do with this knob. The rest of this is all controlled by this section here. So this first knob that says Mon for monitor is just your overall speaker volume for the mains. So if you turn this up, it's coming out through the mains, and it doesn't change the level out to air. That leveler doesn't change. So if you needed to mute it, you could just tune it down. It's not turning down the volume to air, it's just turning down the volume to the room here. So this is for you, this is your personal monitor. There's a button right here that says cut. You'll see if you hit cut, that reduces the volume by 100% while the button's on. So if you're taking a phone call and you don't want to change your monitoring level, you can really just hit that button and it'll go away. Once the button is unhit, the volume will come back. One thing you should notice is if you turn on a microphone, the cut button comes on. It automatically cuts your monitor, and that's to prevent feedback. You'll see if you turn it off, that feature goes away. So watch out for that. If you think you're engineering it properly and you notice that you're not hearing anything out of the mains, look for that cut button to be on. And that means either your microphone, one of your microphones is on in your studio, or you just have that button pushed, or somebody else pushed it and you didn't notice it, and now it needs to be unpushed. So just watch for that. The button above it is dim, that reduces volume by 50%. So if maybe you're just chatting with the other operator and you still want to hear what's going on, but you just need it to be a little bit less loud, you can hit that. So that's the dim and cut features of the monitor. Up here you'll see a couple of other buttons, and there's only a few that we need to worry about, and they're labeled. There's a black circle, a white circle, and an arrow. So that's program, PFL, and off air. Program is anything that is turned on our red lights. Any of the armed tracks, if you have this program button set, they'll come through the mains. We have another feature on this board called PFL, and it stands for pre-fader listen. And that's how you would listen or cue something up if you want to preview the track before it goes to air. So you can play it to yourself without playing it to the radio audience and make sure it's the right thing, or it's, it sounds good, or you can audition it to see if there's any swear words or anything like that. That's the PFL feature. So there are two ways to PFL. You can have the track off, and there's the button up above each input that says PFL. Hit that, and it's green. Green is good. It means you can listen to it, but it's not going to air. Red is danger. That means it will go to air. These can be on simultaneously, but this will still go to air if this is on. So make sure that's off if you just want to preview. So you can hit the preview button here, the PFL button, and the board will always show PFL from this onboard speaker. This is the only thing this speaker does. And you control that volume with this knob here. And you can hear it sounds tinny. It's not a really great speaker. It's really just there to give you confidence in what you're doing. A lot of the times, I'll see DJs maybe play a record over here with the mains on program, and then they can cue up their secondary record by PFLing it and having this crank. So you can hear what you're cueing while you're still playing something to the radio. That's kind of one of the uses for that. It's just there to make sure it's always available. There is one button here that's kind of tricky. It's called PFL 2 monitor. You can leave that on if you want, but what it does is it will trick the system. So when you push a PFL, it changes your mains from program to PFL. You see that? I'm pushing the PFL button on, and now the mains are playing my preview. I push PFL off and it just goes back to my program. So watch out for that. I really love this feature, but I don't necessarily recommend it for beginners because it's another thing that just kind of trip you up. The best setting for beginners is how you see it right now, with your mains on program and your PFL to monitor button off. This will just make sure PFL comes through your onboard speaker and your program will come through the mains. If you want to manually switch your mains over to PFL, you can. That's what the white button is here for, PFL. And then now anything we do on PFL will come through these mains. Your program won't come through these mains, so you'd have to listen to it in another way. But that's what that feature is for. Like I said, I like to leave that on program, and I like to leave PFL to monitor on. And then I can quickly monitor something on my mains, and then hit it off, and then go back to my program. It's probably the best way to do it, but as a beginner, leave that there. The only other button you really need to know about in this monitoring section, most of them don't do anything. But the last one here is this one with all the labeling. It says off air, FM signal with 20-second delay. What this is we have a radio in the studio that's tuned to 107.1 FM, and this allows you to listen to what's on the FM air, like FM dial at the moment, what's on or what we're actually broadcasting. It says off air because we're receiving from the air, we're receiving off air. And you'll hear a marked quality difference. So this is our studio audio, and then when you hit off air, it's 20 seconds later. Actually sounds pretty good today. But you should hear some static, and it should be 20 seconds later as long as the delay is active. So that's what that feature does. And really this is just a confidence monitor. This is just here so that way you know you are on air and you're broadcasting. And you can kind of check what you are broadcasting that way. So whenever you do a studio switch, wholly recommend waiting 20 seconds and then pushing this button. And it gives you confidence that what you're doing is correct and that you're on air. If you ever get a call, somebody says, hey, you're off air. That's the first thing to check. Put them on hold. Undo your cut if you took your cut on to take the phone call, unhit that, and then push that. And here, okay, we're on air. That person is not talking about 107.1. And you can ask them, continue to ask them questions about how they're listening and what might actually be off air. But that's the monitoring section here. This again is just volume for the onboard PFL function. And this last one here is the headphones volume. And it's set up really similar to the monitor. It's got options, PFL, and monitor. And that really just chooses which signal is going to your headphones. So you could keep your headphones on PFL if you want, and preview things with just your cans and then listen to your mains this way. You can do a split. Monitor PFL is a split, so one side will have the program and the other side will have your preview. And then this is just monitor. So it really depends on what you want to come out of your headphones. But watch out for this. If your headphones aren't working the way you're expecting them to, come and make a modification here and choose what signal you want to send to your headphones. This is a volume knob, that's all it is. I recommend keeping this at 12 o'clock, just halfway through, because we're sending actually to a external headphone amp as well. So if you have anything up too loud on the board or here, you'll just really get a lot of distortion and it might confuse you. You might say, oh, this sounds bad. This sounds like crap, it's distorted, what's going wrong? And really it's just you've turned your headphones up either too loud over here or over there. I recommend keeping these just both at 12 so you kind of understand. That's a way to get clean, loud enough audio out of these, and you'll know that, hey, it's not your headphone amp that's messing you up. And there are two places in Studio A to plug your headphones in. One is on the desktop here, which is the Rolls amp, which is great for your guests. And then there's another headphone amp down here, the Symmetrix headphone amplifier, and it's got 4 outputs. So this is great if you're DJing or you're running the board from Studio A. You can plug it in over here. And we'll go look at Studio B and show you where those headphone amps and inputs are. But that's really the basics of how to select an input and how to monitor your inputs and outputs on this board. Last thing you should be aware of, like I said, a lot of the features on this board don't work, but the dump button here does, and this is how you remove a profanity. It's our profanity delay. So if somebody says something on air or plays something that they shouldn't have, hit the red button immediately, as soon as possible. You have up to 20 seconds to do it, but it's best to just hit it right away. If you've waited 5 or 6 seconds, you need to hit it twice. You can hit it up to 3 times before it all goes away. So you can see there, 2, 3, and then it's empty. If it ever looks like this, we have no delay and it needs to rebuild. Just hit the start button. There it goes. And it'll slowly build up. So you'll see once this one is lit up here, we have 10 seconds of delay, and once this is lit up, we've got our full 20. But when this is empty, or in a situation like right now, we don't have our safety net. We don't have much of a delay. So if your program material gets you down to this level and you don't have this much delay, you need to pull the program material off air because it's not safe anymore. But that button is your safety net in case something bad happens. And if all hell's breaking loose and you just need it to mute, you can actually push and hold this button, and it'll mute all audio until you have released it. So if somebody's really going crazy or you just really didn't expect it, you can push and hold that, pull the person off mic or whatever you need to do, and then lift up your button and you should be safe. But that's engineering audio using the Studer consoles. All right, and as promised, we'll go over the slight differences in Studio B here. You'll see the leveler is not that fancy Durometer. It's the onboard leveler that came with it when we bought the machine, but the cool thing is it says perfect right there. So it's easier to hit the perfect mark. These guys are a little bit faded. They see a lot of use, so it's a little bit harder to find zero, but you can look at the ones next to it and you'll get it after a minute. And then the headphone amplifier is here on the left. Great for anybody hanging out here. If you're operating the board, there's another Symmetrix headphone amplifier up on top on the right above here. So those are the kind of the differences. And then there's a DJ mixer here, so you can have a channel specifically for that. Other than that, these boards are pretty much identical. And once you know how to operate one of them, it should be pretty easy to operate both of them. And you can see that the dump buttons are actually tied together, so since we dumped it in the other room, we're still waiting for the broadcast delay to finish up over here. Alright, cool. Well, that's the basics of using these Studer consoles. I hope you enjoyed the video, and let us know if there are any questions.